Welcome everybody to another installment of HouseTrends with REMAX Realty Group. I'm Scott Kelly, broker-owner of REMAX Realty Group, and I'm glad you've taken the time to review with us the latest in the housing trends affecting your local market. So let's get right into this month's numbers. This first slide we give you every month. We want you to see where the mortgage rates are headed, and there was a big prediction last month that the downgrade in the credit rating and that the interest rates were going to skyrocket. I told you last month that we didn't think this was going to happen. We thought it was going to have a reverse effect. If people started questioning the American economy and what America could do, they were going to question the whole world, and that's exactly what took place. And this drove people to the most secure of all investments, and that was the treasury bonds for this country, and that lowered interest rates. Probably what we're going to see is a leveling out a little bit and maybe even a tick up as we move forward, but that big spike that everybody predicted didn't take place. But I want to give you a whole assortment of good news on that whole shadow inventory distressed property fund. And I want you to break it down so that we can look at the reality of how it's impacting your particular area, your local market. First off, one of the things that we've been talking about for years now are the ways you can look at how much distressed properties there are going to be in the future. And that may be to look at how many people are falling 90 days behind on their mortgage payments. Now that's just logic, and if you fall behind for 3 months and your mortgage payment and the numbers show only about 2% of those people ever catch up, and then 90% of the 8% of these people are 3 months behind, are going to end up in a short sale or a foreclosure. Well, the good news is the number of people that are falling 90 days behind in their mortgage is dropping dramatically. Now, why is that such great news is once we clear that current inventory of foreclosed properties and distressed properties, there's not a backfill happening. We have some work ahead of us, and that we have probably that work for probably another 12 to 18 months. But the good news is once we get through that, we'll be past the worst of it, and we'll be able to reach some point of normalcy again. As long as that number and that number of people falling behind on their mortgage payments continues to decline, the date at which recovery will take place will continue to move forward closer to us. Now let's take a look at inventory itself. Here's a graph. I'm going to show you a couple of graphs in a row from calculatedrisk.com. This gentleman does a phenomenal job in taking a look at certain parts of the economy and putting into a very strong visual. We can take a look now here and breaking down the REO inventory and how many homes banks actually own, and that's important. And we've been talking about this since the middle of last year, that the robo-signing and the challenges of the banks had after foreclosing on properties and the courts coming in to slow the process down, and the amount of properties on the market that banks would own would shrink. Not because that they're not there, but it's just because they caught up in the court systems, and that's exactly what took place, as you can see from this graph. But if you look at this next visual, you'll understand that the process is simple. There are 4 steps to a home reaching foreclosure. Step 1 is that it goes 90 days delinquent in their mortgage payment. That puts them into the foreclosure process. Once they clear the foreclosure process, it becomes a foreclosure. The bank takes over the property. Sometimes they have to fix it up. Sometimes they have to do things. Sometimes they have to clear some title. But then once all of that is done, they actually put the foreclosed property on the market. That's called an REO. Real estate owned by the banks that technically are for sale. We can see that between the foreclosure process and the bank actually taking possession, there's a logjam. Again, going back to the robo-signing, the paperwork's not being accurate. The court systems are coming in, slowing down the banks on the foreclosure of those people. And that moment, that probably was the right thing to do, but we can't allow that shadow inventory to hang over the market forever. The recovery will not come about until this storm cloud passes, and this storm probably won't pass until some rain of foreclosures on us happen. Now let's talk about what the impacts are on what's taking place. All going through last year into the first quarter of this year, prices were falling pretty dramatically. What we told everyone over the last couple of months was that there was going to be a window of opportunity as these foreclosures got caught up in the court systems. There was a window of opportunity for some sellers to sell their properties during the second quarter of this past year, from April, May, and June, even into July. And what the numbers show is exactly what we said was going to happen. As the foreclosures got clogged up, prices went up. Now the question is, what happens from here? And I put a very strong graphic together for you on that issue. The normal market has 5 to 6 months of housing inventory. According to the Standard & Poor's Shadow Inventory Report on the second quarter of 2011, currently nationally there's 47 months worth of inventory. That inventory is going to be coming on the market. That cork is going to blow. That cork was imposed by the court systems that slowed up the amount of foreclosures coming on the market. When that cork blows, a lot of that shadow inventory will come to the market, and that would put a downward pressure on prices. This is exactly what we've been saying was going to take place for over a year now. So on any listing that you have at this moment in time, get it priced right. Get it sold, because this is distressed property inventory comes on the market at discounted prices. It's going to continue to drive prices down. The fact that they've held off the market by the court systems and the bad paperwork over the last 6 months allowed prices to tick up a little bit. That's why we saw all those headlines. So we're okay. We're going to go through a rough spot again for some period of time, but we're not as bad off as some people are sensing right now, and that's where we each have to step up. We can't allow consumer confidence to control the market ahead of the market determining consumer confidence. Mark Zandi put it best. He said in regards to consumer confidence, quote, "Confidence normally reflects economic conditions. It doesn't shape them. Yet at times, particularly during economic turning points, cause and effect can shift. Sentiment can be harmed as business consumers and investors freeze up, turning a gloomy outlook into a self-fulfilling prophecy." This is one of those times. So it's not that the sentiment is coming from the economy, it's the negative sentiment creating the poor economy. And it's our jobs as the soldiers on the street to make sure that we're communicating to the consumers that things aren't as bad as they sense them to be. Now, I understand that this is not going easy, but take the words of Chief Economist Doug Duncan from Fannie Mae. Quote, "Consumers are more cautious due to concerns over employment and housing financing. We can't allow their fear to determine the market," and that's exactly what's taking place, ladies and gentlemen. As consumer confidence is falling, fear is creeping in, and we have to realize that all fear comes from uncertainty. They can't be confident because they don't understand, and it's a confusing market. Mostly our duty and our responsibility to get out in front of those buyers and sellers and explain it to them. When I heard all this doom and gloom, I said, well, is it really that bad? Let me take a look at it. And when we went to the Dow, and I said, even with the roller coaster ride we've been on, the Dow wasn't higher now than it was last August. And these are all dates as of August 31st. The S&P, with all the craziness, is still higher today than it was in late August. The NASDAQ's still higher today than it was a year ago. Median home price is up, and the rate on the 30-year mortgage is down, and unemployment went from 9.7 to 9.2. Guys, this speaks volumes about what's really happening out there. If you were told by us that these were going to be the number 8 months ago, we all would have said, look, it's turning around finally. But you know, as professionals, we're talking to people who already believe what we're telling them, but they're afraid. We can't sell them through that fear. We can't sell anybody through fear. If you start selling, you're going to become more afraid. But we can talk people through their fear. We can reason with people through their fear. We can help them understand what their true options are and where their true opportunities are. That's our duty. That's our responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, every one of your buyers and sellers have to decide right now if they're going to let other people make their decisions for them moving forward in their life, or are they going to get the information to make the right decisions for themselves and their families. And getting that information is not easy, but realize you have it. You have all the information that we can possibly get, and we have it in a format that you can easily explain to them and present it to them. That's all of us together. You have that lantern to help your buyers and sellers get through the fog of this market. Light it, pick it up, and let's lead right. It's on us. Let's take a look at that responsibility and run with it. Thanks for joining me today. And remember, if you have any questions on the information presented today, please ask your REMAX Realty Group agent for clarification or additional information. And if you are considering making a move inside your real estate career, please give us a call or visit our blog. We would love to talk with you today.